Hey folks, welcome to the shed. So today, what I'm going to be doing is just showing you, really showing you how I'm thinking about setting up this place in various different ways. Because one of the things I've noticed about music making in general is that the way that a lot of music technology is, and this is being kind of slightly helped by the resurgence in hardware and things like that. But in general, we are pulled towards a kind of static music making. And I think moving towards a more dynamic way of making music is something that sidesteps a lot of the problems that can occur. And when I say dynamic, I mean actually responding to what's happening in real time in the moment. Now, a lot of people call that live or doorless, but I think it works even if you're in a door and you're not making music live. Obviously, I've gone very far to the end of the live spectrum, if you like. When I say live, I don't mean in venues or anything, but I've gone, very far to the sort of doing things in, without assembling them in a DAW or anything like that. But whether you're in a DAW or not, making your music making process much more about you doing things in the moment allows you to not second guess yourself and stuff like that. So I'm a little bit all over the place, to be honest, because I'm setting up the studio. And I think it's fair to say that nowadays, if you really want to be a music producer and want to make a go of it, then probably you want to incorporate the possibility of being able to go live on places like YouTube and things like that. But it does create a lot of additional problems. And in my last place, which was actually in the house that I was staying in my last place, it was a lot easier because I'd actually made it much more probably aligned with doing things on YouTube and stuff like that. But now I'm actually going more towards the doing it for making music. So I've got myself a little mixing desk. And let me just move to the other camera. So I've got myself a little mixing desk. Let's take this camera off. This will be the roving camera. Okay. There. Where is it? You can't see it. Yeah. One of those. It's just a Keith McMillan K-Mix. So you can see the mic going in there. And that basically makes everything a lot more complicated. So I won't go into the fairly boring ins and outs of how I've got the sound set up, but just so you know, this live stream is probably going to be a little bit more chaotic than I would like because I'm still setting my studio up. So that's kind of the point. But anyway, so feel free to ask any questions along the way. I'm on 2 computers at the moment, so hang on a minute, let me just get the comments up. Hello, Tim. Hi, Nath. Hi, Drew. Hello, Manuel. So yeah, feel free to ask any questions along the way. And what I want to do is I want to make this as useful to you as possible, rather than me just talking about myself. So essentially, there's going to be 4 different questions. Well, there are 4 different questions that I've asked myself while setting this studio up, because it was an opportunity to kind of start from ground zero, if you like, and go, right, so if I could set it up in the best way possible, knowing what I know now, because the way I had it set up before came from a non-live situation, a very static kind of making music in a DAW, and then I kind of fell into doing it in a more dynamic way. But then in moving, I realized that it didn't have to be set up that way. I could do it much more dynamically and actually kind of optimize for that. So I thought, well, how do I think about this? Yeah, how do I actually do it? And I essentially set myself a bunch of questions to ask. And number one was, and ask these questions of yourself as well, because I can promise you they'll help. So, number one, what elements of writing music, composing music, actually making music, not producing music, so not the technical stuff, but the musical stuff, okay? What element of writing music, but not production, would mean your music would improve the most? Okay? So why don't you tell me right now, what element of writing music, when I say writing music, we'll get onto the production side of things, but I'm talking about the actual notes, yeah? What element or elements of writing music would mean your music would improve the most? Number two, why don't you post that in the chat as I'm going along? I think the chat's a bit behind, so I'll pick it up along the way. Number two, how can your setup automatically produce a quality sound without mixing and mastering afterwards? Now, I'm not saying that question isn't about I'm not going to mix my music and I'm not going to master it. That's not it. This is a kind of thought experiment type question, which is, how do I actually, when I'm actually composing it, when I'm actually writing it, how do I make it so that it automatically sounds good going in? Yeah. So, first question, what element of making music, not production, would mean your music would improve the most? Number two, how can your setup automatically produce a quality sound without mixing or mastering? So Naif says, for me, playing more advanced chords. That's an interesting idea, Naif. More advanced chords? Are you sure about that? I hear this one a lot. Are you making jazz? I mean, because I guess if you're making kind of, jazz or something like that, I'm not saying you're not, but if you are, then fine. Maybe more advanced chords would be something that you might want to think about. But just look at the history of music, look at most music, and I'm not sure higher quality music is about more. It's the way you framed it. More advanced chords. Have a think about that. Anyway, no matter. Let's have a look. More improvisation. Okay, yeah, but when I say what element of making music, I mean what actual parts. So, for instance, one of the things that I'm looking to do with Zentor is make it sound more unique, so that not only can, when you hear it, you know that it's Zentor, but it doesn't actually sound like anything else. Okay, now that's quite a tall order. There aren't that many musicians in the world that I think, without actually singing, are able to do that. There are some, but there aren't that many. And so, for instance, for me, this is something else that came out of moving house and moving into a shed, and it didn't have a door, so I couldn't set up the whole thing. Well, I mean, I could, but I didn't want to because it was open to the elements. And I mean, it had a roll down door, but it was old and had holes in it and stuff. So I didn't want to set up all of the synths, so I just set up my piano MIDI keyboard, and got my laptop out, and I just played, because I wanted to continue live streaming every day. So I've been doing it for 100, probably maybe almost 200 days now or something. I'm not sure. It's about half a year anyway. So, my screensaver keeps coming on this computer, which is really annoying. So hang on a minute. Okay. So, sorry about this. Sort this out because it's very distracting. There we go. So I started just playing the piano with some delay plugins. And as a result of that, I realized, because I didn't have the synths and stuff, so it was just ambient type stuff. And I realized if I just really doubled down on that kind of musical element as I was using it, because there are some pretty cool things that you can do simply just with a few delays and some very, very simple piano playing. And I put what I had in the terms of the electronics underneath it, that would actually sound very different from a lot of stuff that I've heard. Yeah, it's like that it wouldn't sound the same because of that. And actually, in a lot of ways, it's easier than what I was doing before. Okay, so So as a result, I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll start that with that as a starting point and add the electronics underneath it, which actually means, when I say the electronics, the synths and stuff. So what that means is that I'm actually simplifying what I'm doing in terms of the piano playing. It requires less skill, in a sense, in terms of the chords and the notes and stuff. I'm still practicing the piano. I still want to get much better at the piano, but actually I can create these textures and these soundscapes with simply a piano. So I'm now no longer using a string sound. Not that I will never use a string sound. I'm only using a piano with delays, and I've added these instruments underneath, and it's making it simpler to do and more unique. Okay, so there's a good example of what I'm talking about. What element of writing music would mean your music would improve the most? Now, the way Naif's answered the question is what I need to do is learn loads of stuff about advanced chord patterns because I want to write neo-soul. But I would suggest respectfully that that's the kind of, how would I call it? That's the school way around. Yeah? With what you have now, how can you, maybe this is another question, how can you simplify what you're doing to make it sound more unique and it improve the most? When I say improve the most, I mean improve the most right now. Simpler and better. That's kind of what I'm driving at here. Yeah. So learning more advanced chords, yes. I mean, so for instance, with me, being able to play the piano better, absolutely, that's what I want to do. Being able to do more on the piano, yeah, absolutely, that's what I want to do. But I'm not waiting. Yeah, I'm not kind of settling for, well, when I practice for the next year, 2 years, however long, then I'll get to the point where I'm making better music. How can I do it right now? Yeah. Tim says, how do you make music that you can reproduce accurately? Well, who says you have to? that's the thing. What like I'm even asking you to question, because again, if we think about the distinction between static to dynamic, yeah, the way that music has been recorded, why do you have to reproduce it accurately? Yeah, maybe you can reproduce it, but not accurately. Maybe that would be more creative. What's the reason you have to reproduce it accurately? Who says? Maybe there is a reason. I don't know. But certainly for me, in my situation, I'm setting it up so that I don't have to reproduce it accurately. In fact, I don't have to reproduce anything. Yeah, I'm moving away from it being a static thing. I mean, at the end of the day, if I make let's just say, and this is highly unlikely to happen, but let's just say I improvise a track. Yeah, and by the way, I'm not suggesting that anybody goes fully into improvisation like I am, right? But let's just say I improvise a track and it becomes a massive hit, massive worldwide hit. Make it happen. But let's just say that happens, okay? So now I have this track, this piece of music, right, made up of probably a melody and some chords and some kind of rhythms and stuff, okay? And then I'm asked to go and play it live. Do I have to reproduce it accurately when I'm playing it live? Why? Why do I have to produce it accurately? Don't I just have to play it so that people recognize it? That's a very different question to how do you reproduce music accurately? You don't have to reproduce it accurately. You just have to play it so that people know that it is what it is, if that's what you mean. Yeah. I guess if you were, I'm trying to think of an example where you would have to reproduce it accurately. I don't know. I mean, I can't really think of one. So Nave says, but I feel it would be more fluid by intentionally learning neo-soul chords as their style leans towards my main interest. Yeah. So there's a difference between interest. So I have an interest in lots of things, but I'm choosing, like, that doesn't mean that how do I explain this? There's a difference between what you want to do and what you can do right now. Yeah. And what you want to do can be a direction. Yeah. What you can do right now isn't necessarily, I mean, it can go in that direction. You can push it gradually in that direction. But if you want to make the very best music you can make now, yeah, sure. I'm not saying don't learn advanced chords. But what I'm saying is, what are you going to do in the moment right now, which is better? Trying to play. So, for instance, there's a lot of things that I am practicing in my piano playing, but I'm not actually using, I mean, I kind of am, but I'm not doubling down on them in the actual performances. Yeah, or even in my music that much. I'm doing a bit of it, but not much, because it's not like I'm much better at other things. Yeah. So it's almost like where you want to go, you go in that direction. But what can you do now? How can you simplify it? So because the thing is, there's a difference between what you want to do and what you can do. And what you can do, yeah, in order to actually get into flow, you want to be just pushing a little bit into what you can't do. So like 6 or 7%, apparently, that's what they say. Yeah. So that often means when you're actually doing it, lowering the bar. Because usually you think, I want to do this, you know. It's like you can't, you want to know what it's like to run. You want to know where you're running, but you can't run before you can walk, right? Now, I mean, you know, I'm just using you as an example, Nate. I don't know how close you are to using, you know, more advanced chords. It's just that framing of it. More advanced chords, why? And what does it even mean? What is an advanced chord? It's like that idea of Einstein level chords. Einstein level chords, 4-5-1, bang, you're done. That's an Einstein level chord. Yeah, progression. Anyway, yeah, simpler and better. So Time Talking says simpler and better. Try writing well within my abilities. So I wouldn't. So yeah, that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm not saying writing well within your abilities. I'm saying just pushing just a little bit out of your abilities. Yeah, and also maybe leveraging other abilities. So an example: I'm not a very good piano player. Now I am practicing. I am doing lessons in order to become a better piano player. Okay, but I'm not waiting until I become the piano player I want to be in order to make the music I want to make. I'm making the music I can make now, right? Now, at the level of piano player I am, I can only play very simple things without making lots of mistakes, right? So how do I make that more interesting than just like playing nursery rhymes on the piano? Okay, so what I've done as a result of having this break from everything else and just having the piano on its own, what I did was I added these tape delays, VSTs and everything, and started playing with those to create these kind of soundscape things. Now, that is an ability that I needed to, have practiced and needed to practice over the last month or so in doing these daily live streams, and I've had to figure out a lot of things. But it's actually a lot easier to do that kind of thing than the practice that I'm doing on the actual piano. Yeah. So in other words, I'm doing something easier that has a big impact that makes, well, for number one, it makes the music sound more unique, yeah, because of the way that I'm doing it. It kind of makes it sound bigger. It's easier in a piano playing sense, right? And there's less, like when you make a mistake with a delay unit, it's not as obvious. It's much more fuzzy. Yeah. So in a sense, I'm stretching myself somewhere where I've not gone before, but in another sense, I'm kind of staying within my abilities. How do I enhance my abilities, maybe with technology? Yeah. But it's not about staying well within your abilities. It's just about kind of pushing a little. Yeah. Anyway, right. So that's about what element, like what can you actually do in the moment, yeah, which mean your music would improve the most. You practice that. You set it up so that you're actually practicing that in every session. You're not like sitting there, I'm going to make this perfect piece of music, and I'm going. It doesn't matter if I can't do it, because I can always edit my way out of it later. I think that's not the optimal way to think about making the very best music you can make, because apart from anything else, it's not fun and it's really boring. Yeah, unless you're super into editing, which some people are. Yeah. Number two, how can your setup automatically produce a quality sound without mixing or mastering? Right. So I'm not suggesting that you don't mix or master, but what I am suggesting is, so a lot of people, when they make music in a DAW, yeah, and this applies to people who make music in a DAW. I'm not just talking about DAWless. Yeah. So when you make music in a DAW, you just start, and it's like often you'll just reinvent the wheel every single time. I'm going to get this kick drum, I'm going to get that thing, I'm going to get this over here, I'm going to get that thing. Instead of doing that, set it up so that you have the same basic setup every single time, and over each session, you're gradually improving that setup. Right? So let's say that you make a piece of music, or if you're using the automatic music, you're making multiple pieces of music, and you have the same basic starting template. By the making of that piece of music, you are actually learning something about that template, which you can then tweak for the next time you start a piece of music. Yeah. So maybe you have some kind of chain on it, either in software or hardware or whatever. You have some kind of chain on your beats that can improve over time. So it's almost like you're constantly mixing your music. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people who already do this, but essentially treating your actual template, your setup, your starting point, as something that you're iterating on all the time. So it's almost like you never finish making it sound better immediately. Yeah, and this obviously, means using the same things over and over again. But that's fine. There's no problem with that. Yeah, because again, limitations make you more creative. Yeah. Okay, so next, the thing that I think a lot of people they're trying to find the best thing, and what I tend to do instead is find the thing that works. Okay, now as you can see over here, I have an SH7, and there's a box up there somewhere. There's a what is it? I can't remember. Oh, yeah, Prophet, a Rev 2. And I've chosen not to plug those in right now. I've got this up here because I haven't actually got a box for it, so I've got it on a stand so that it doesn't sort of get trodden on or anything like that. But I've chosen not to plug those in, and I'm just using the minimum amount of gear. Yeah. The reason being is that I know that these things sound good. I've got a lot to think about already in terms of sorting these out. Yeah. So I've only plugged in the 3 Moogs and I'm only using the piano. Right. And now I may well add to that over time, but the reason for that is that I know that these things work for me and I'm trying to become as good as possible at the minimum amount of things. So depth, not breadth. Yeah. If you think you've got like 100 points of focus in any given moment, yeah, or in your life, I mean, I know it doesn't work like that, but let's just say you've got 100 points of focus or 100 points of expertise. If you learn 100 things, you're going to be 1 point good at each of those things. Whereas if you learn one thing, you're going to be 100 points good. Yeah, mastery is about getting good at less. Bottom line. Yeah. So what software or gear do you find most inspiring, fun, and quick to use? That's a question that you want to answer when you're thinking about your own setup. And you can do this digitally in the box or out of the box. Use less to make more. Yeah. Which is why I've chosen to stick with the Moogs. Now, a lot of this stuff isn't plugged in yet, so I haven't plugged these controllers in. I've actually simplified massively, so I haven't plugged this one in yet. And I haven't plugged this in yet. Because what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it over time, is I'm going to start as simple as possible. So I've got the beat step. I've got, move to the other camera. Yeah, so I've got the beat step, which is triggering various things on the camera's frozen. What's going on there? Oh well, okay, I'll have to use this as the roving camera as well. So, where are we? Over here. Yeah, so I've got the beat step, which is I basically got this plugged into here in various different ways in order to do different things to usually the DFAM actually. But that's basically all that's doing. I've got the subharmonic on and I've got the Mother 32, which is just hats at the moment. So really, the only sounds I've got are subharmonic on, the DFAM, and Mother 32 and a piano. That's it. Nothing else at this point. Okay. Because it means that I have less to focus on and I can get better. I can get more out of those things. So if you think the Mother 32 is literally, it's just a hat, it's just a shh sound. In fact, I'll play it. Hang on. Hopefully I don't deafen everyone. Hang on, let me just turn everything down. I'm not used to using this actual mixing desk, so give me a second. So, hang on. 2 seconds. Let me get my headphones. Yeah, so there you go. So that's all the Mother 32 is doing. That's the subharmonic on. Oh, I forgot to start it at the right time. Hang on. So this is the DFAM. Yeah, Mother 32. Okay, and then my piano. loads of reverb on at the moment, but so I don't know if you want to count the Mother 32 as a separate sound. It's really just a hat, but essentially other than beats, there's the subharmonicon and the piano, and that's it, right? Now, that might seem to be terribly limiting and mean that I can't do any, how would you do that? Like, isn't that really boring? But when it went to just the piano and I went to just delays, like using delays on the piano, it was amazing what happened. It was like all of a sudden the amount of things I could do with just that one instrument and the tape delays was infinite. I was like, I've got so many things that I could do. And I didn't see it when I was using all of this stuff as well. Yeah. Now, obviously, I'm not going to stick with just the piano on its own. I mean, I did consider it at one point, actually, but I'm not going to stick with just the piano on its own. It's something that I can do, and it's something that I can, like in my, on a particular live stream, I might just do a piano one every now and again. I can do it in sections of the longer live streams. I'm going to do sort of much longer live streams, 6-hour ones, that kind of thing. So I can do sections which are like that. So it is a thing that I can do. It's sort of these moments. Yeah. So I don't just want to do that, but when you reduce the number of things that you focus on, your ability, becoming great at anything is about practicing less, more. Yeah. Practicing less stuff, more. Yeah. Well, if you want to get good at something, you got to do less. So how do you choose what to choose? How do you choose what to choose? Well, the things that inspire you the most, the things that you find the easiest right now. Yeah. Not the things that you find hardest. Yeah. Because that's going to be a much, much steeper climb. Because even easy things, in order to master them, they're as hard as anything else. Yeah. So that's why I'm choosing to do this. And that's why I'm choosing to actually do a lot less. Sorry about I've got kookaburras right outside my window. So that's why I'm choosing to do less. And I've removed a lot of the stuff in the computer that I'm doing. It's a lot simpler right now. Now, that's not to say I'm not going to add to it. Yeah, but I'm starting with a very, in the computer, I can't show it you because I'm doing it. I've got two computers at the moment. I'll do it on another live stream. I'm going to do another of these in 2 days' time, where I'm talking more about idea generation more than the setup. And then I'll do another one where I'll talk about the actual drafting process. And then I'll do another one talking about the mix and the sort of production stuff. And maybe we can get in the computer there. But anyway, so and if you want to get on those, subscribe to the channel, because this is a different channel to the Make Music Your Life channel that you may be subscribed to already. This is the Zental channel. Anyway, so I'm doing a lot less, and I'm going to start with less, because it's almost like I want to start as simply as possible and build, add one thing gradually. Yeah, change one thing in response to actually what happens. Again, this is about dynamic and static. And I'm not looking to reach the perfect workflow. I'm not looking to reach the perfect setup, right? Because there isn't a perfect setup, because my needs are changing and my interests are changing, and what I'm excited about is changing. What I want to do is changing. How I feel about, what I'm inspired by is changing. How I feel in my life is changing. What I get good at is changing. What I get better at is changing. My understanding is changing. I am changing all the time, which means that my workflow and my setup and how I use it and the equipment I use has to change, but it has to change slowly so that I don't overwhelm myself. Again, it's this dynamic thing about not thinking that you can fight. Right, now I am done. Right. I don't understand. I know a lot of people who have built a studio and they've designed it and they've made it perfect and they've got all, everything's all put in and now it's ready. I do not understand how they can do that. It's like, now I have access to absolutely everything that I own. I'm like, that's literally would send me into, I wouldn't be able to deal with it. Yeah. So, what I'm trying to do is create the maximum flexibility by creating the maximum simplicity for myself. It's like flexibility to dynamically move forward with what I add and take away in time. Yeah, because when you think about it, what people are looking for when they set up a big studio with everything like within arm's reach, and is like, I can have any option available to me immediately, so that when I get inspired to do it, it's just there. Is that actually how it works? Is that what actually happens? Don't you just end up using the same thing over and over again and forgetting about the things over here and then feeling bad that it's there? Yeah, as I said, I've got this up here like this because I don't want to ruin it. Right, but I haven't got it plugged in. Yeah. Isn't it better to have less, use it more deeply, see what you can get out of it, and progressively add little bits here and there, take away other bits here and there? I don't know, maybe not. But certainly I know it's better for me. Okay. So, like on that note, limitations, right? So we've talked about what you want to get out of your music making practice. Yeah. What do you want to get better at? Yeah. How can you make your music sound better by how you've got it set up automatically? Yeah. We've also talked about what inspires you. With the limitations, you yourself, if you had to choose just 3 instruments and 1 machine that makes beats, to make a bunch of ideas with, what would they be? Yeah. Why not try starting with that and try perfecting, and you know how much I hate the word perfect, but perfecting, at least it's a doing thing, perfecting using those, getting better at using those, making progress at using those. That doesn't mean you don't ever use anything else later on in the process if you're not doing it live, if you're working within a DAW. So, but you just start by making ideas on that very small amount of equipment or software. Wouldn't that mean that you would necessarily get much faster, much better? You would master that stuff. Yeah, and there isn't a limit. There isn't a limit to what you can do with one of these, or a piece of software, or like almost any software synthesizer or sampler, or at the moment, there isn't a limit. The only limit is up here. Yeah. And finally, and I mean, as I said, this is a work in progress, and it was an absolute nightmare before I did this, before I started this live stream, because I realized that I'd got my setup great for playing music, but not so much for talking and playing music. And now I've realized that is actually an important part of being a modern music producer, I think, is being able to actually share your process and go live and talk to people and, interact with people in that way. That's part of the modern music industry now. Yeah, which is, like it or hate it, that's just the way it is. So, in that sense, I hadn't optimized for that, so I had to unplug things and stuff like that. So, but essentially, aside from that, what instruments are you going to focus on playing while you create your ideas? And what parts of your process remain static? Yeah. So, even if you don't have any kind of musical training, even if you're not an instrumentalist, even if you think, I can't play anything, right? You can play something. You can twist a knob, even if it's a virtual knob. Yeah. Don't be a virtual knob. No, so anyway. So even if it's a virtual knob, you can twist something. You can play something. Right? Because in actually becoming, like, making music in time, right, rather than out of time, and I'm sure this is just a coincidence, but it's funny how when you make music out of time, you always run out of time. Right? So when I say out of time, what I mean is when you statically make music, which is out of the time that the music is playing, you always run out of time. Or you never finish. Right? But when you make music in time, well, you can't run out of time, because you just make it. So if you currently don't play anything in at all, start by just playing, like actually playing some automation in. I promise the more dynamic you can make your process, and when I say dynamic, think about like a dynamic EQ. What does it do? It responds to what is happening in the moment. Yeah. Whereas a static EQ, and that doesn't, I mean, I use static EQs. I'm not saying one is better than the other. This is the other point. Static and dynamic is not better or worse. It's just, if you are 100% static, if you make all of your music out of time, then you're going to have a much more difficult process than when you bring more dynamic elements into it. Yeah. So in other words, you start playing more stuff in, even if you don't have that training. I mean, it's really interesting when people say, oh no, I wish I could play the piano. Do you know what? You can. I didn't come out of my mother's womb playing the piano. Now, I was lucky enough to have my mum forcing me to play the piano for a few years. Fair enough, right? So I'm lucky enough to be able to play the piano, probably better than somebody who, you know, if they were my age, would start now. But that doesn't mean that anybody can't learn to play a few notes on the piano. Yeah, and even if you don't want to play the piano, even if you don't want to do that, there are lots of things that you can do which mean that you do start playing stuff. Think about, like, music is in time. And if we're working in a medium that is in time, why do we make so much of it out of time? It's like checking your emails or something. Now, this doesn't mean hardware or software or doorless or not doorless. That's not what I'm talking about. This is the difference between static and dynamic. Think about how you can, just piece by piece, a little bit by little bit, make your music making more dynamic. Start with just one knob. Yeah, a virtual knob if it needs to be. Right, what I'm going to do is, when I make an idea, is I'm just going to start by performing this one filter. You know, I'm just going to play, you know, a filter thing. And I'm not going to try and make it perfect. I'm not going to draw it in, measure it. Oh, it's not exactly on the, oh no. Yeah, I'm not going to do it as much. And you're not going to do it with your eyes. You're going to feel it. You're going to get, you know, you're going to get even just do it with the trackpad. Yeah. And you're going to actually interact with the music in time. And that's where you'll start. Just that one little bit of dynamism in your music. Yeah, and you'll do that over and over again. And then you'll add something else. And then you'll add something else. And before you know it, you'll be Vladimir Ashkenazi on the piano. Well, no, I'm kidding. But you can make your music making more dynamic right now. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter what training you have. Doesn't matter what you think you can do. You don't have to draw everything in. Yeah. So if you just make this little rule for yourself that when you're making an idea, you actually start dynamically playing some things in. Yeah. Whether it be automation or a knob or actually playing. Yeah. And, you know, instead of thinking, oh, so for me, instead of me thinking, oh, I can edit it later, I'm thinking, oh, I need to practice, so I don't need to edit it later. Yeah? Or I'll do another take, so I don't need to edit it later. Yeah, there's a difference between the static way of thinking and the dynamic one, right? I'm going to do this. I'm going to perform this in once. Yeah, here's the static way of thinking. I'm going to perform this in once, and it's okay because I can edit it later. That's a static way of thinking. Now, that works. Yeah, but a dynamic way of thinking would be, I'm going to play it in 5 times and pick the best one. Yeah. No matter that, you know, bar 12 of the third take, yeah, is better than bar 12 of the first take, but the first take is generally better. Yeah, I'm not going to go and then edit bar 12 into the first take. I'm just going to take the first take and deal with the fact that bar 12 is worse. Because overall, bar 1, the first take is better. Yeah, does that make sense? It's a different approach. It's a different way of thinking about it. You accept that nothing is going to be perfect. You can't make anything perfect. but you can get better so that things get better. Yeah. So, cool. So when I does anybody have any questions about this? So yeah, so essentially that, I mean, there isn't a lot to say about my setup other than I've got the 3 Moogs very simply plugged in. I'll show you in I'm going to do another 3 of these live streams about my setup. And I'll show you in the computer actually how I've got it going in. And as I said, it's changing over time in response to what I'm doing. And I am going to add, Tim was saying, yeah, I am going to add the SH7 at some point, but not yet, not until I've kind of got these in properly. Just check and see if there's any more. Great. Costel's saying this thing about the dynamic way changed the game for me in the past months. Brilliant. Okay. Carl says, it's interesting this in-time thinking entered my mind recently before Mike's email about this event. For me, it's about striving to make sessions like a live event. Yeah, exactly. Right. So this is the other thing. When you do a session, think of it like a performance, right? Because you can report. So what we tend to do, here's another static versus dynamic kind of mind shift, right? So, and this is whether you're doorless or in a door. This is whether you are improvising electronic music live, or doing free jazz with instrumentalists, or assembling your music and doing editing. It doesn't matter which end of the spectrum you are, static and dynamic. There are different ways of reporting on results, right? So there's the results of what comes out, hearing what comes out. And as we all, well, maybe not all, but a lot of us know, what we think sounds good in the moment when we're making it often isn't, and vice versa. Yeah, so that's unreliable. But anyway, so there's that way of reporting on results, hearing what comes out, either now in the moment or afterwards to the recording. And that's one way of reporting on your results. That's one kind of a result. But there's another result, which is how was the process? How well did you do the process? No matter what the what is coming out of the speakers is only one result. Actually, over the course of your career, a much more important result is how good was your process? Yeah, what worked? How good was your practice? How focused were you? What were the problems with actually doing what you were doing? Like, aside from what is coming out of the speakers, of course, what's coming out of the speakers is absolutely important, right? But there's also, how was the process? They are two different results. They're related results, but they're different results. So I can come into a performance and feel very out of sorts, yeah, and have people go gaga for it. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. Similarly, I can go into performance and feel that I'm just absolutely on fire and people not care. Right now, I'm not saying either the results coming out the speakers or the process are more important, but they are both important. Ideally, both will happen at the same time. But in terms of your own engagement and your own progress through time, as a musician, the process is where it's at. You're going to get better results over the course of your career by focusing on the process more than the actual product. Yeah. Now, the product is important, and the product gives you data about your process. But a lot of people do it the other way around. They think, how do I get the ultimate process which gives me the perfect product? No. What is the product telling me about my process? That is a much more dynamic way of approaching making music. And I can tell you what, having been the ultimate static, I'll edit everything music maker for most of my career, and now kind of going all the way to the other end of the spectrum where it's much, much more dynamic. Yes, there's a lot more mistakes. Yes, there's a lot more egg on my face. All of that. But it's a lot more fun what I'm doing now. And as I keep saying, you don't have to go fully into the 100% improvisation end of things. You don't have to come out of the door. You don't have to buy hardware. You don't have to do anything. That's not the point. This is the distinction: is if you make your music making process more dynamic over time and less static. And again, there are going to be some things which are just going to be static. So, for instance, if you're mixing and mastering, that tends to be more static. But having said that, there are actually ways of making it more dynamic too. That is going to be more static. Comping vocal, like editing vocals, that's going to be more static. But again, comping vocals, how do you make that more dynamic? Well, just get a better take, right? Record it in better. Focus on that as much as you focus on the editing thing. Yeah, but by thinking about moving things, I'm going to move this to a more dynamic thing, starting with the things that you can do rather than the things that you can't. You're going to make better music. You're going to have more fun. You're going to be more motivated. It's going to go quicker. Yeah, you're going to second guess yourself less. It's a game changer. Yeah, and you don't have to go to the fully live thing that I'm doing. So we've been going about an hour. And I'm going to love you and leave you. I'm probably going to do what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go live. I'm going to reset up my stuff so it's back in the way it was before. I'm going to have to figure it out so that I can do everything that I need to do rather than having to unplug things. But I haven't sorted that out yet. So if you fancy hanging out for a bit longer, I'll probably go live with just a little performance in about 10 minutes or so. He says. Famous last words, 20 minutes later. But yeah, so, but I hope you found this useful. I'm coming back. I'm going to come back and talk about specifically the idea generation process 2 days from now. Yeah, so same time, 2 days from now, Zentor channel. So come for that. Hopefully by then I will have sorted it out a bit better so I can show you more stuff, actually show you what's going on. So let me just check some. Thanks. The drafting video, that'll be on my Saturday, I think. My Saturday, same time. So that's most people's Friday, same time as this. Well, an hour before now. Same starting time. Anyway, I will send emails about it. So if you're on my email list, just check that out. So anyway, been great to hang out. I'm going to get ready to play a little bit of music now. I think that thing that's on there at the moment was what I did yesterday, so it's going to have to be something different. But anyway, hope you've enjoyed this. I will see you in a couple of days. If not, keep enjoying yourself and onwards and upwards. Bye.